As you know, we're spending a lot of time unpacking this stunning report from Mr. Durham this week. I don't understand why other journalists and broadcasters aren't spending more time. Well, actually, I do understand because they were on the wrong side of this issue and they actually perpetuated the lie that was Russian collusion. We didn't. There was one thing in this document, though, an extraordinary document that really stuck out to me, and I want to dwell on it for a moment. Here, take a look. Mr. Durham said, as such, the answer is not the creation of new rules, but a renewed fidelity to the old. The promulgation of additional rules and regulations to be learned in yet more training sessions would likely prove to be a fruitless exercise if the FBI's guiding principles of fidelity, bravery, and integrity are not ingrained in the hearts and minds of those sworn to meet the FBI's mission of protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution of the United States. This coming from a career U.S. attorney who has worked with the FBI almost every day of his professional life. So how do we do that? Well, let's bring in one of the men who might be part of the solution. He is Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Not only is he on the Judiciary Committee, but he's also on that all-important weaponization of the federal government committee that's looking at these things. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you as always.
Well, I know how seriously you take what we've learned about the FBI and what they did during the 2016 campaign and also through the entire Trump presidency. They investigated a candidate for president, the Republican nominee, and the president of the United States. And according to Mr. Durham, they never had any actual corroborated evidence to even launch that investigation. It never should have happened. How do we fix this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're asking the operative question. In context, everyone has to, it's hard to keep up these days. There's so much happening, but the offenses against this Department of Justice and this FBI continue to mount. Remember that they first labeled concerned parents at school board meetings as domestic terrorists. And then we found out they were recruiting spies inside what they deemed to be conservative Catholic parishes. Then we found out that they've used all the resources at hand to go after conservatives and even to censor and silence them on social media. The FBI was meeting regularly with the social media platforms up to the last two election cycles. And so now we have the Durham Report. And after exhaustive investigation, millions of dollars spent, he proved what we all have known intuitively, and that is that the FBI has not adhered to its primary responsibility, and that is strict adherence to the law itself. And so they have weaponized this agency to be used against people with different political viewpoints. And it's a very frightening thing. What we do about it is we need real reform. And that's what we're digging in right now to resolve and to propose and try to ensure this never again happens in the future.
The FBI statement, which I'm assuming was approved by Director Wray, if not actually written by Director Wray, said, oh, yeah, this is old news. We already learned these lessons. We put in corrective actions. Everything's fine. Basically, exactly what Mr. Durham said would be a fruitless enterprise. Is there any reason why the FBI should be trusted to police themselves in this matter?
They don't have any credibility at this point. I mean, there's just too many offenses that have lined up, and there's much more. You know, the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government was put together as soon as we got the Republican majority in the House this year, because it was such a critical need for it. And when we named it, our Democrat colleagues balked and said, "Oh, weaponization, it's hyperbole." There is no other way to describe what is happening here. And what we've got is, in our view, as the evidence continues to roll out, it's surprising even to us. It's worse than we thought. But you have corruption at the top, the highest levels of the FBI. Look, you have valiant, patriotic field agents that are out in these field offices around the country doing the Lord's work, right? They have very important responsibilities and jurisdiction. But many of those have become whistleblowers because they're being asked to do things that violate not only their consciences, but what they know to be their constitutional duty. And so we have to root out the corruption at the top of these agencies, this one and others like it, to make sure that we can resolve and save these institutions because the people are losing their faith in them.
So this is frustrating to me, Congressman, if I may, because you look back at the recent American history in the 20th century. You know, we had investigations in the late 40s and into the 50s, the Alger Hiss investigations, Whittaker Chambers, where we actually found that there were legitimate Soviet spies working in the federal government. And in many respects, that was a bipartisan effort. There were Democrats who joined Republicans in rooting that out and trying to make reforms. In the 70s, with the Tower Committee that actually reformed the post-J. Edgar Hoover FBI, supposedly fixing all these same problems we're seeing cropping up again now. But again, even Republicans joined with Democrats to look at that. Now we don't have that cooperation because it looks like Democrats are okay with the FBI operating this way as long as they're targeting their political opponents.
Well, sure. I mean, these agencies have become an instrument, a tool for the Democratic Party, and they use them without any compunction at all. And of course, they don't want to support reforms because it's been very useful to them. But look, we have to get on top of this, and I think. The founders were very clear about this. They understood the reason they put in checks and balances and separated powers is because almost 247 years ago, when we launched the American independence, the independence movement, we set out on our new course and set up a constitutional republic. They understood the fallen nature of man. They understood that power corrupts, and they understood that absolute power corrupts absolutely. The problem we have right now is those systems are broken down. That separation of powers is being eroded, and you're having power concentrated in the hands of just a few people. This is a phenomenon that's been explained in one of our weaponization hearings. We had a 30-year plus agent of the FBI who explained that after 9/11, there's been a movement to concentrate power, to consolidate things, and that's been a terrible development.
You know how this town works. All of the reforms that you're proposing, they're not going to go through until there's a new chief executive in the White House who can actually institute it along with his attorney general. Whoever that person is, whether it's, I don't even want to name names, whatever Republican wins the presidency and they follow through on this issue, the media, the Democrats, pop culture, they're going to say, oh, here we go. These fascists are putting together their own secret federal police that will do their bidding. I mean, it seems like such an uphill battle to be able to get this done.
Well, it is, and we have a real challenge on our hands. There's no question about it. And I hear frustration all the time when I'm doing interviews or back home in town halls, and constituents say, Mike, why can't you guys just force the change through? And I say, remember the reality. As you just said, we only have the majority in one House of Congress right now. And even if we had the majority in both, I'm just a member of Congress. I don't have the ability to indict anyone, to put them on trial in a court. What we can do is our constitutional responsibility of oversight, and we can put the facts and the evidence out there in the court of public opinion. And we can allow the American people to understand how far this has devolved and how dangerous it is for the future of freedom. That's a really important function that we have right now. And so we're going to continue this over the next, over this Congress, over the next year and a half, laying out the facts, letting the American people draw their own conclusions. And I hope and pray that directs how they vote in the next election cycle, because we have
You're
to fix
a serious person, and I think you're a very optimistic person. So I want you to speak to maybe my cynical side, and I'm guessing some cynical viewers right now in our audience. Because, I mentioned the Tower Commission in the 70s, right? And that's where they really reformed the FBI. That happened because J. Edgar Hoover used the FBI against RFK and against Richard Nixon, right? It was bipartisan, these tools. It went both ways. So talk me off the ledge here, because I'm thinking cynically. Isn't it true that this will only get the Democrats' attention if a Republican attorney general uses the FBI against Democrats, basically using these tools as a weapon against them? I know that's the wrong way to think, but that's the only thing that'll get their attention.
No, I think you're right. That's an accurate observation because it's reality. I think this will be one in a series of factors that will weigh in for the next election cycle. I think people have had enough of these leftist policies. They see what it's done to their security, their opportunity, their liberty, their pocketbook, and they're going to vote the other way. And when they do that, we'll be able to institute these reforms. Now, not everybody is going to enjoy it, and you're right. We'll probably have very few Democrat votes to help with that. But I pray and believe that we're going to have enough conservative and Republican votes to push the reforms through, and then everyone will see how beneficial that is to them. Sure, they're going to call us names, they're going to misconstrue it, but we have to push this through. We have to have the fortitude to get it done, because otherwise we are going to lose this republic. You cannot maintain a constitutional republic if the people don't trust the institutions, and that's what's at stake.
By the way, I know I'm going to get a lot of comments on this on social media and across the platforms we put this show on. I don't know why I keep saying Tower Commission, because I'm a child of the 80s, of the Reagan 80s, and that was the commission report after the Iran-Contra affair. But you know what I'm talking about. Thank you, Congressman
Johnson. The church committee is what you're talking about. The church stuff.
Thank you. And thank you for being a nice enough guy not to correct me in the middle of the show. Don't let that happen again. Thanks, Congressman. We'll be back with more on O'Connor tonight.